Hi, I'm Dr. Lenne Hunt with the Marriage Recovery Center, and we're talking today about kind of a complicated situation that has to do with the victim of emotional abuse becoming an abuser themselves. I want to be clear here. One of the things that we find really often in our work is that abusive spouses will often, in the course of being held accountable for their abusive behavior, say things to the other spouse like, "But you do it too," or "You're the abusive one," trying to turn the tables on the other one. It's a common strategy which has a couple of motives or goals behind it. For example, if I can say that you're abusive too, then somehow the thought is that that equalizes my abusive behavior and makes mine maybe not so bad, minimizes it a bit, washes some of it out, as though it's a math problem with two columns, and as long as the things in one column equal the things in the other, then it's just all a wash. So that's sometimes what's behind that sort of statement. In the end, though, it creates sort of a quandary for the wounded spouse, how to view themselves. Am I the victim, or am I now an abuser too? One of the common consequences of living in an abusive marriage, where there's high conflict, and high conflict over an extended amount of time, is that we often get twisted out of shape. The day in, day out wounding of our hearts begins to be transformative, and not in a good way. It is a really common thing for me to hear from wounded spouses that they have begun to be someone they don't recognize anymore. They've noticed things in themselves that never were true of them before, but they find themselves doing, and it feels foreign to them, even in the midst. And most of the things that we're talking about now have to do with them engaging in behaviors which are less healthy than the things they used to do by way of response. Less healthy, perhaps even damaging in content. And they're really dismayed by that view of, in some ways, even becoming like their partner who has been so wounding to them. In that scenario, we're looking at what I would call an abusive reaction to abuse. In response to multiple moments, cumulative moments of hurtfulness from a partner, the wounded one, out of frustration, out of having tried everything they know to do to stop the abuse, reaches some place where nothing has worked and they don't know what to do anymore, and it all boils over. Not a good development. It doesn't feel good to find yourself doing that. And it gives the primarily abusive party an excuse, a tool that they can use to try to minimize, as I spoke about earlier. I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One of the most important being that if you're in the position of living in an emotionally abusive marriage, and if you are now seeing in yourself behaviors that sort of mimic that abuse, behaviors that plague your own conscience and your own sense of integrity, maybe behaviors that fly in the face of who you've always thought you were, I want to say to you that rather than beat yourself up with that, I do encourage you to use that observation of yourself as a way to see that it's time you got some help. Because if you don't arrest that, if you don't arrest that twisting of who you are, it's going to take hold. And it's going to be transformative in a continuing way, where you become increasingly less like yourself. I don't mean to excuse our bad reactions. Truth is, we don't always act patiently, forgivingly, kindly, compassionately toward the people who hurt us. We don't always get that right, and we have to own that. But it comes from a different place than the one who originally abused us. It looks like the same behavior on the surface, but it isn't quite. One is a reaction to being in a situation from which you find no way of escape, no way to make yourself heard, where it looks like, feels like you have no power to stop what's being done. And so the eruptions occur. If you're at that place, it is a dangerous place to be for the sake of your own soul. And I really want to encourage you to reach out to us or to someone else, but to reach out somewhere for some help. It's bad enough that you're victimized by someone else's words and behavior. You don't want to victimize yourself by transgressing your own sense of integrity with a negative response to them. And this is a hard one. We struggle when the roles of victim and perpetrator get tangled up together, and yet they do. It's not an uncommon issue. We would love to help you sort that out. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, give us a call, and I'd be happy to have that conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in.